The sun was setting over Rio de Janeiro, painting the skies with warm shades of orange and crimson. On the bustling corner of Lapa, where music never seemed to sleep, a small cafe named Café Horizonte came alive with laughter, chatter, and the sound of cups clinking. João, a university student with a wide smile and endless curiosity, sat at a wooden table by the open window. His notebook was filled with scribbles of English words, messy translations, and doodles of flags. Across from him sat Mariana, his childhood friend, her eyes bright with excitement, but her face tense with concentration. "Repeat after me," João said, slowly and clearly. "Hello, my name is Mariana." She hesitated, then repeated with a soft accent. "Hello, my name is Mariana." João clapped his hands once, pleased. "Perfect. Now try it with confidence. Imagine you are speaking to one of those tourists who get lost near the tram station." Mariana laughed nervously, her voice breaking. "But João, what if I say something wrong?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "That is the beauty of learning. Mistakes make the best stories." As the evening deepened, the cafe filled with strangers, locals, musicians, and a handful of travelers with maps and cameras. The scent of freshly baked pão de queijo drifted across the room, and outside, the sound of samba drums began to rise from the square. Mariana glanced around. Her eyes caught a tall tourist with a backpack who had just walked in. He ordered a drink in broken Portuguese, and the waiter struggled to understand him. João noticed the spark of curiosity in her eyes. "Go on," he whispered, nudging her arm. "This is your chance. Use what we practiced." Her heart thumped faster. She felt the weight of her friend's encouragement, the warmth of the cafe, and the challenge that now stood before her. Slowly, she rose from her chair, every step towards the tourist feeling heavier than the last. The air inside the cafe seemed to quiet, as if waiting. She opened her mouth to speak. And then, Mariana stood before the tourist, her palms damp, her throat suddenly dry. She remembered João's words, his playful encouragement, and forced a smile. "Hello," she said carefully. "My name is Mariana." The tourist, a young man with sandy hair and sunburnt cheeks, looked up from his guidebook. His eyes widened with relief. Oh, finally, someone who speaks English. Her heart leapt. It had worked. João, watching from the table, gave her a discreet thumbs up. The tourist continued, his words quick and eager. "Can you help me find the tram to Santa Teresa?" Mariana froze. The question was too fast. She only caught fragments of the sentence, like leaves in the wind. Tram. Santa Teresa. Help. She bit her lip, scrambling through her memory of João's notes. Behind her, the cafe hummed with life. Cups clattered, a guitar strummed in the corner, and yet Mariana felt as though the world had narrowed into a tunnel where only the tourist's expectant gaze mattered. She blurted out the first phrase she could recall. "Yes. You are very delicious." The tourist blinked. His brows lifted in surprise. Around them, a couple of locals overheard and burst into muffled laughter. João nearly spat out his coffee. Mariana's face burned. She had meant to say, "You are very welcome." Somewhere, the words had twisted and betrayed her. The tourist scratched his head, half confused, half amused. Thank you, I suppose?" Mariana stammered, her voice cracking. No, not delicious. I mean welcome. You welcome." The laughter at the neighboring table grew louder. A waitress shook her head with a grin, whispering to her colleague. João finally rose, rushing to Mariana's side. He patted her shoulder, whispering, "It's all right. Keep going. Don't stop now. One mistake doesn't end the game." The tourist, sensing the tension, softened a smile. "It's fine. Honestly, it's kind of charming." But Mariana could not shake the sting of humiliation. Her chest tightened, and she struggled to decide whether to laugh it off or run away. Before she could choose, something unexpected happened. The tourist leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Actually, maybe you can teach me some Portuguese. Fair trade, right?" Her eyes widened. This was not what she had expected at all. The tourist leaned closer, resting his guidebook on the table beside her. His voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. If you teach me Portuguese, I'll forgive that delicious mistake. Mariana blinked, stunned. Her embarrassment still lingered, but curiosity began to nudge her forward. João, standing just behind, raised his eyebrows with a grin, silently urging her to accept. She cleared her throat. Portuguese. Yes, I can teach. The tourist nodded eagerly. Brilliant. First word. Mariana hesitated, glancing at João, who mouthed, simple. She thought quickly, then said, Bom dia. It means good morning. The tourist repeated it with a heavy accent. Bom dia. Mariana giggled despite herself. Almost. Bom dia. Bom dia. He tried again, this time smoother. His grin widened, proud of his effort. The cafe around them seemed to soften, the earlier laughter fading into the background. João joined them, sliding his chair closer. All right then, fair trade. You, Mariana, teach Portuguese. And you, stranger, teach English. What's your name? The tourist extended a hand. Thomas. From London. Mariana shook his hand timidly, her cheeks still warm. Thomas. Okay. João rubbed his palms together. Excellent. Tonight, Café Horizonte becomes a classroom. The three of them leaned in, words bouncing back and forth across the table. Thomas tried to shape Portuguese vowels, often twisting them into odd shapes, while Mariana stumbled through his English corrections. João, amused, played referee, cheering at every small success. As the night deepened, candles flickered on the tables, and the hum of samba outside grew louder. Yet inside the cafe, the world for them became a delicate dance of sounds, laughter, and the thrill of discovery. But just as Mariana began to feel her confidence return, a shadow fell across their table. It was the cafe owner, Senor Carvalho, a stern man with a sharp gaze. His arms folded as he looked at them. English lessons? Here. His tone was not unkind, but it carried a weight of authority. The air stilled. Mariana's smile faded. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. João tried to mask his nervous chuckle. Senor Carvalho leaned closer, lowering his voice. Careful what you teach. Words can build bridges, or they can start fires. Then, without waiting for a reply, he moved away, disappearing into the kitchen. The three sat in silence for a moment, the echo of his warning lingering between them. The words of Senor Carvalho lingered in the air like smoke after a fire. Mariana could not shake them from her mind. Words can build bridges. Words can start fires. She wondered which of the two she had lit tonight. Thomas leaned back in his chair, his grin faltering. Did he mean us? Are we causing trouble? João tried to wave it off with a chuckle, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. He always talks like that. He is old, dramatic, poetic. Do not worry. But Mariana was not so sure. She replayed her blunder from earlier, the way laughter had rippled through the cafe, the way her cheeks had burned. She had wanted to build a bridge, yet instead, she had felt flames of humiliation licking at her pride. Thomas cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Well, I don't want to get you into any sort of fire. If this is awkward, I can just finish my drink and leave. The thought of him leaving so suddenly sent a strange pang through Mariana. She surprised herself by blurting out, No. Stay. Please. Her tone carried more weight than she intended. João looked at her with a smirk he tried to hide, but his eyes twinkled knowingly. Thomas smiled, reassured. All right then. Lesson 2, I suppose. Mariana nodded, her nerves melting just a little. She thought for a moment, then offered. Obrigado. It means thank you. Thomas repeated it slowly, his accent thick. Obrigado. Mariana corrected gently, guiding his lips with her hand hovering near his. Rolled R, obrigado. When he finally managed it, she laughed, clapping softly. Better. Much better. The tension loosened. For a while, they slipped into a rhythm, an exchange of words, laughter at mistakes, small victories celebrated like great triumphs. Yet in the back of her mind, Senor Carvalho's warning echoed. The cafe grew quieter as the night stretched on, patrons trickling out one by one. The music outside dimmed, replaced by the distant rumble of the tram climbing the hills of Santa Teresa. Then, just as Mariana thought the evening would end peacefully, Thomas leaned in with a question she did not expect. "Mariana," he asked softly, "why are you really learning English? Is it only for fun, or for something more?" Her breath caught. She had not prepared for this. Joao looked at her curiously, waiting for her answer. And in that moment, Mariana realized the truth was far heavier than the games of language they had played tonight. Mariana lowered her gaze, tracing the rim of her empty cup with her fingertip. The cafe lights flickered softly above her, casting golden pools across the worn wooden tables. She hesitated, as though each word weighed more than the last. "I want to leave Brazil," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Thomas blinked. "Leave?" Joao frowned. He had heard fragments of this dream before, but never with such clarity. "Mariana, you never told me it was serious." Her eyes lifted, shimmering with a quiet determination. "It is. I love Rio, I love our people, our music, our skies. But I feel trapped. I want to see the world. To study, to live, to work somewhere far away. English is my way out." The confession hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Thomas leaned back, folding his arms as he absorbed her words. "So, every phrase you learn, every mistake you make, it isn't just practice. It's a ticket, a step closer to your escape." Mariana nodded slowly. "Exactly. That's why when I fail, when I say something wrong, it feels heavier than just a mistake. It feels like my dreams slipping away." Silence wrapped around them, broken only by the clink of cutlery being gathered by a tired waiter. Joao rested a reassuring hand on her arm. "Dreams do not slip away because of one wrong word. They slip away when you stop trying." She smiled faintly at him, grateful for his faith. Thomas tilted his head, his eyes thoughtful. "You know, when I first came here, I thought learning Portuguese was just a tool. A way to order food, ask for directions, survive. But maybe language is more than survival. Maybe it's about connecting, about changing where you belong." Mariana met his gaze, something stirring within her. The cafe door creaked as another customer entered, a woman with a polished appearance, speaking rapid Portuguese to the staff. She glanced at Mariana and Thomas, her eyes narrowing as she caught fragments of their mixed conversation. Her lips curved into a faint smirk, as though she knew something they did not. She took the table directly behind them, her posture sharp, her attention keen. Mariana felt a chill at the back of her neck. Joao noticed her unease. "What's wrong?" She shook her head quickly, but the thought remained. The stranger was listening, watching, and for reasons Mariana could not yet name, it felt like the night had just shifted. The woman behind them stirred her coffee slowly, her spoon clinking against the porcelain in a deliberate rhythm. Though her eyes pretended to skim a newspaper, Mariana could feel them flicker toward their table again and again. Thomas leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Do you know her?" Mariana shook her head. "No. I've never seen her before." Joao stole a quick glance over his shoulder. "Strangers are common here. Tourists, business people, artists. Still something about her feels different." The woman crossed her legs and adjusted her glasses, tilting her head as though listening more closely. Every time Mariana opened her mouth to speak, her stomach tightened. The lessons suddenly felt exposed, their laughter and mistakes no longer harmless, but dangerous somehow. Thomas whispered, "Maybe she's just curious about us mixing Portuguese and English." But Mariana wasn't convinced. There was an edge in the stranger's expression, a sharpness that did not belong to casual curiosity. Trying to steady herself, Mariana forced a smile and continued. "Thomas, new word. Liberdade. It means freedom." He repeated, his accent thick. "Liberdade." Mariana corrected gently, "Liberdade." The woman's spoon stopped stirring. A pause. Then, quietly, She muttered the same word under her breath. Perfect pronunciation, clear and firm. João stiffened. He had heard it. Thomas noticed too, his brow furrowing. The woman folded her newspaper, stood, and walked past their table toward the exit. As she passed, she leaned down just slightly, enough for only Mariana to hear. Her voice was calm, almost teasing. Careful with your freedom. Words can take you places, but not always where you wish to go. Then she was gone, the cafe door swinging shut behind her. Mariana's chest tightened. She sat frozen, the echo of that warning tangled with Señor Carvalho's earlier words. Both strangers had spoken the same way, as though language carried a weight she did not yet understand. Thomas touched her hand gently. Mariana, who is that? She shook her head slowly, her pulse racing. I don't know, but she knew exactly what she was saying. The three of them sat in uneasy silence, the once playful cafe now charged with mystery. And deep down, Mariana knew this was only the beginning of something larger than she had imagined. The cafe had grown quieter after the woman's departure, yet her words still clung to the air like smoke that refused to disperse. Mariana shifted in her chair, replaying them again and again. Careful with your freedom. Thomas leaned closer, concern written across his face. She wasn't just a stranger, was she? It felt deliberate. João rubbed his chin, frowning. 2 warnings in one night. First Señor Carvalho, now her. Strange coincidences, don't you think? Mariana's pulse quickened. Coincidence or not, she felt as though her private dream had been overheard by forces she could not name. She had shared her desire to leave Brazil, to seek a life elsewhere, and suddenly it felt as though the world itself was listening and judging. To break the tension, Thomas lifted his glass and attempted another word.
Sod.
That's cheers, isn't it? Mariana managed a small smile.
Yes.
Sod. They clinked glasses gently, though the act carried none of the lightheartedness it should have. Outside, the night thickened. The tram bells echoed faintly in the distance, mingling with the fading rhythm of samba from the square. Inside, the flicker of candles painted long shadows across the walls. Thomas lowered his voice. If freedom is what you want, then words shouldn't frighten you. They should empower you. But Mariana hesitated. What if words can also trap me? What if I say the wrong thing in the wrong place, and it closes every door? Her confession hung between them, fragile and raw. João leaned forward, his tone firm, yet kind. Then you must keep speaking until you find the right door. That is how freedom works. You keep knocking, even if your hands bleed. Mariana felt a swell of gratitude, yet also fear. It was easy for João to say, but her mistakes carried weight she could not ignore. The waiter appeared suddenly, placing a folded slip of paper on their table. No explanation, no glance, just the paper. He walked away before any of them could speak. Thomas reached for it first, unfolding it carefully. His brow furrowed as he read aloud. Be careful what you teach tonight. Someone is listening. The three of them froze. The candles flickered as though stirred by an unseen hand, and for the first time since entering Café Horizonte, Mariana truly felt afraid. The slip of paper lay between them like a riddle carved in shadow. Its letters were sharp, written with a hurried hand, the ink pressed deep into the fibers. Mariana's fingers trembled as she touched the edge. Someone is listening, she whispered, repeating the warning. Thomas scanned the cafe quickly, his eyes darting to every corner, every face. But most of the tables were empty now. Only 2 old men argued softly over a chessboard, and the waiter polished glasses behind the counter. Nothing seemed unusual, yet the silence was heavier than before, as if the very walls held their breath. João tried to mask his unease with a smirk. Perhaps it is just a joke. Someone heard us earlier, thought it amusing. But Mariana shook her head.
No.
It feels too pointed. First Señor Carvalho, then the woman, and now this. It cannot be chance. Thomas folded the note carefully, tucking it into his pocket. Then maybe the question is not who is listening, but why. Why us? Why tonight? Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier, drumming against the tiled roof of the cafe. The window glass blurred, streetlights melting into streaks of gold. Inside, the candles guttered, their flames shrinking as if threatened by the storm. Mariana felt a pull within her, a mixture of fear and defiance. If someone was watching, if her words truly carried power, then perhaps she needed to test it. She leaned forward, her voice steady. Thomas, new word. Esperanza. It means hope. He repeated softly, his voice blending with the rhythm of rain. Y esperanza. For a fleeting moment, the heaviness lifted. The word lingered like a fragile flame in the storm, fragile yet stubborn. But then, from the counter, the waiter glanced over. His expression was unreadable. He raised a glass to the light, polishing it slowly, his eyes fixed on them just a little too long. João noticed and whispered, "Do you see? Even he is watching." Thomas straightened, his jaw tight. "Then let them watch. We're not doing anything wrong." Yet Mariana's heart told her otherwise. Tonight had shifted into something more than lessons, more than laughter. And as the thunder cracked above Rio, she knew that the price of her words was about to become very real. The storm outside gathered strength, thunder rolling across the hills of Rio like a warning drumbeat. Rain hammered the windows, blurring the lights of Lapa into trembling halos. Inside Café Horizonte, the air thickened with unease. Mariana sat rigid, her pulse echoing the storm. Every shadow in the café felt alive, every glance heavy with suspicion. She wanted to speak, to return to the safety of words and laughter, but fear had stolen her voice. Thomas leaned close, lowering his voice. If someone is watching, if they are truly listening, then what is it they fear? Why warn us? João tapped the table nervously. Perhaps they think language is dangerous. That teaching, sharing, crossing between tongues, it is breaking some invisible rule. Mariana thought of Senor Carvalho's stern eyes, of the woman's mocking smirk, of the note slipped silently onto their table. She whispered, "Or maybe they fear what happens if I succeed." The storm crackled, lightning spilling through the windows in white flashes. Suddenly, the cafe lights flickered, then dimmed. The candles became their only glow, shadows stretching long and strange across the wooden floor. The two old men at the chessboard muttered in frustration, packing their pieces away. The waiter moved quietly behind the counter, though his eyes once again lingered on their table. Thomas exhaled sharply, breaking the silence. "Enough of this. We came here to learn, not to play games with ghosts. Mariana, one more word. Teach me something strong. Something no storm can take." Her lips parted, her voice trembling yet resolute. "Coragem. It means courage." He repeated, his accent rough, but his tone steady. "Coragem." The word clung to the air, louder than thunder, steadier than rain. At that very moment, the cafe door creaked open. A gust of wind swept inside, carrying droplets of rain across the floor. And there, framed in the doorway, stood the woman from before. Her coat glistened with water, her expression unreadable. She closed the door behind her with calm precision, her gaze fixed directly on Mariana. The room seemed to hold its breath. The woman stepped deeper into the cafe, her wet shoes tapping against the wooden floor. Each step sounded louder than the storm outside. She moved with certainty, as though the night itself had been waiting for her return. Mariana's chest tightened. João shifted uneasily, half rising from his chair. Thomas's hand hovered near hers beneath the table, a silent gesture of support. The woman stopped at their table, her gaze locked on Mariana. "You speak of freedom, hope, courage," she said in flawless English, her voice smooth and unhurried. "Do you understand the weight of those words?" Mariana swallowed hard. I'm learning." The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Learning is dangerous, especially when you mean every word you say." The storm boomed outside, rattling the windows. Thomas frowned, standing now, his voice firm. "She's not doing anything wrong. She's learning just as I am. If words frighten you, that is your problem, not hers." The woman's eyes flickered toward him, amused. Bravery from a tourist. But it is not me you should fear. Her gaze returned to Mariana, sharp and piercing. You think English will set you free? That it will carry you across oceans, open doors, make you belong elsewhere. But language is not just a key. It is a blade. It can protect you, or it can cut you down. Mariana's breath trembled. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Yet something inside her shifted, a spark rising through the fear. She leaned forward, her voice steady despite the storm within. Then I choose to wield it. To use it, not to be silenced by it. The woman studied her for a long moment, the storm filling the silence between them. Finally, she nodded once, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. Approval, perhaps, or warning. Very well, she said softly. But remember, every word carries a price. Without another glance, she turned and walked out into the rain, the door closing behind her with a hollow thud. For a moment no one moved. The cafe seemed to exhale, the storm's roar fading into a softer rhythm. João sank back into his chair, rubbing his temples. What was that? Who is she? Thomas shook his head slowly. Whoever she is, she believes words are power. And, tonight, I think she proved it. Mariana stared at the door where the woman had vanished, her heart still racing. Freedom.
Hope.
Courage. The words pulsed within her, alive, unstoppable. And though fear still lingered, she knew she could never go back to silence.